Hi everyone, I am Cornelius of Voice Studio East, and this is the promised Q&A episode to conclude my series on complete vocal technique. I might do more Q&As in the future, sort of interspersed among other videos, so if there's some question you forgot to ask, you still have a chance to ask it. Now, to business. Sci-Chew Music asks, Hey Cornelius, as I've been exploring Edge, I noticed that I seem to be getting some false fold distortion going on, and it's maybe a bit pressed from about C3 to B3, haven't gone higher yet, but I can get a reliable overdrive up to about F4, and I seem to get a reliable edge below C3. Any tips for getting rid of this dirtiness I hear? Of course, it's hard to provide a specific method without hearing a recording of the issue in question, but generally speaking, false fold distortion involves some combination of twang, pushing air, and some kind of compression that I suspect has to do with the interarytenoid muscles. Since your overdrive is working fine, it might seem like twang is the culprit, but since it is possible to twang quite a lot without getting distortion, I find it unlikely that twang is the sole culprit. I would probably start from a soft, breathy neutral, but still in fuller density, and then do a crescendo from there, going towards edge. A. Focus on the buzzing metallic sound rather than the twang. Misery3681 asks, I was wondering if a person can learn the CVT method without the authorized teacher, just from a book. Well, you don't need an authorized teacher to learn CVT, but you probably won't be able to learn it on your own, let alone learn it from just the book. Instead, I recommend consuming all the YouTube content on CVT from myself, from Rockvox, and so on, and seeking out communities of singers who are interested in CVT and with at least some members being knowledgeable on it. For example, you could join the Vocalist Chat Hub on Facebook, or if you wait a bit, I am going to make a Discord community you can join. YRTXC asks, any tips on how to train for a fuller density neutral in the higher range, like how you demo the Journey song in the video? First, just get comfortable in the high range in overdrive or edge. As you do, you will probably find that the notes are easier to reach if you hit them somewhat lightly with a bright sound color, that is, erase larynx, pharyngeal narrowing, and so on. This will also reduce the amount of metal in the sound, so from here we can proceed by simply finding more ways to make the sound color brighter. It may be helpful to do the cat yowling exercise from the curbing video to find the pharyngeal narrowing, and to do a slight creaky onset in order to stabilize the tone. Do not go relying too heavily on the creaky onset though, as doing so will lead to reduced density. GGBun763 asks, I saw your video on breath support and it gave me a new perspective on breathing, but it's more important to me how I do it. What is the support training method of CVT? Well, so the point of my video on breath support was to explain that support energy basically boils down to what we might call expiratory intensity. To increase support, just exhale harder, so to speak, and to decrease it, exhale less hard. Which movements are involved in this will depend on your posture, how much air is left in your lungs, and so on. I don't tend to focus much on support in my teaching, and it often seems to be the case that hyper-focusing on support distracts singers from technical issues having to do with vocal tract shaping and laryngeal adjustments, all the while interfering with an aspect of vocalization that they already instinctually know how to do. With that said, I distinguish two main patterns of breathing in singing, one which I call dramatic and another which I call dynamic. The dynamic approach is the main one taught in CVT and probably the simpler of the two. It typically involves low breathing and a focus on pushing the sides out during the expiratory phase, that is, when you sing. This creates a kind of standing crunching motion that can generate very large changes in pressure very easily, and also has the advantage of making it easier to engage the false folds. One of the downsides to this method, though, is less muscle antagonism, which makes it harder to get fine control and steadiness. Thus, it may be helpful to do exercises that focus on a steady expiration on s or sh. The dramatic approach is related to what is known in CBT as inner support, and involves what we might call a supported inhalation. That is to say, there is a lot of core engagement already during the inspiratory phase, which serves to raise and open the chest cavity, creating a bold, upright posture like that of a superhero with a very high sternum. During the expiration, the sternum is typically kept up, and the core muscles contract further to squeeze the abdomen and push the diaphragm upwards, much in the manner of a corset tightening. Then, for the next inhalation, the expiratory muscles simply relax a bit, with accessory inspiratory muscles having typically remained active the whole time. This approach is just very good for fast and almost automatic inhalations, and for very precise control of the support energy. It also allows for fuller breaths and thus longer sustains, but it also involves more muscular effort and will tend towards a somewhat classical or legato-oriented musicality. I plan to make a video for each of these approaches in the future. However, there are only 3 cases where I would even address support with a student. Firstly, if the student is doing what is known in CBT as locking, I might sometimes address support, though only if the problem seems present across all vocal coordinations. If it is not, then I would instead approach the issue by working from one of the vocal coordinations where the locking is not present, and seek to go from there to other modes without adding locking in the process. Secondly, if the singer is practicing some unfamiliar genre, like going from musical theater to hard rock or vice versa, they may need to switch from the dramatic style of breathing to the dynamic style or vice versa. Thirdly, if the singer needs a sufficiently drastic change in the support energy and is having trouble getting it, for example, if there's a dramatic climax in a highly metallic edge, followed immediately by a quiet neutral, much lower in pitch, a singer may tend to go sharp for the second part, or may have trouble getting into neutral at all. Other examples include an overly exasperated sounding falsetto, airiness interfering with distortion, or weak high notes in classical. It is my somewhat controversial view that pitch issues, pitch limits, most cases of locking, lack of access to fuller density, and so on, are usually not caused by improper support, and are almost never best addressed by focusing on the particulars of support. RPG2614 asks, how do I improve volume dynamics for neutral, especially as I navigate up the dreaded passaggio territory? It's hard to stay in neutral past E4 in M1, D4 on a bad day, and my voice has a tendency to go towards more metallic configurations. I do golden exercises, but I'm yet to get a handle on modulating volume correctly. First, I'd recommend making sure that your metallic singing in this range is as efficient as it can get. Make sure, for example, that you're not relying on a hold in your edge and overdrive, and that you can do bold onsets directly on pitch without either being forceful or timid, and that there's no sound of wheezing or creaking, even in the onset. Once you've gotten that down, you can proceed to reduce the volume while making sure not to add a hold in the process. If you want neutral in reduced density, you can add the hold back in later, but for now we want to avoid it in order to stay out of curbing. Try raising the larynx slightly and opening the mouth slightly as you decrease the volume. Don't raise the larynx too much, though, or open the mouth too much. We are looking for relatively subtle changes here, merely to compensate for the loss of supraglottic narrowing when reducing the volume. It will be quite tricky to learn, but if it does not seem to be working at all, I'd recommend revisiting the metallic singing in this range and perfecting it as much as possible before you proceed. And that's it for this video. The resonance Q&A is still coming, but it will be postponed until after my register series, and will be a combined registration and resonance Q&A. As mentioned in the beginning of this video, I will make CBT Q&As a recurring theme when enough questions pile up. So if you still have questions, be sure to leave a comment below. Stay tuned, remember to like and subscribe for more content, and as always, thanks for watching.